clandestine finance is under scrutiny as never before. Here's a Financial Times guide to some of the techniques that let money move around the world incognito. First up, shell companies. The client's money sits in an account, often in Switzerland. Formally, the account isn't held by a human being, but by an offshore company. Typically, the company is registered in a tax haven, such as the British Virgin Islands. The company's address is a PO box. These can serve sometimes as the address for thousands of companies. The client isn't named among the company's directors. Instead, the directors are nominees supplied by a law firm. These law firms, based in places such as Panama, set up the British Virgin Islands company. Sometimes that offshore company will in turn be owned by another offshore company. And that offshore company will in turn sign a declaration of trust or a power of attorney, granting control to the client. The only people who know the identity of the client are the bank, the law firm, and a company registration agent. And sometimes even one or more of those are in the dark as well. Then there's a technique called hold mail. The client requests that no documentation whatsoever is sent by the bank to his home address. If the client hasn't declared his account in his home country, this technique avoids creating a paper trail. The authorities in the client's home country won't be alerted to the existence of an otherwise invisible account. The next technique is the use of promoters. Promoters are intermediaries used by the bank to bring in clients. Their contracts state that they are not employed by the bank and that they may not present themselves as such. Sometimes, the promoter will have a contract to bring in specific named clients. The promoters, or the offshore vehicles they sometimes use, are entitled to a share of the profits that the bank makes from the client money the promoters bring in. This share tends to be about 30%, sometimes as high as 50%. Next up, credit cards. The bank arranges credit cards linked, say, to a Swiss account. The bank tells the credit card company that the bills should be sent to and settled by the bank itself, not the client. The client is then free to spend using the card without bills ever landing at his home address. That also means that money paid into the Swiss account or paid to the offshore company by which the account is held can be withdrawn by the client in cash or through purchases without leaving a paper trail to the client's home address. And lastly, code words. Bankers give clients prepaid debit cards linked to offshore accounts. This allows the client to shift money from that undeclared offshore bank account back into their home country, say the United States. The client can then spend the money without leaving a paper trail. The client's name doesn't appear on the cards, but up to $30,000 a month or so could be moved in this way. As an extra precaution, when some clients needed their cards topping up, they spoke to their bankers only in secret codes. And there you have it, the nuts and bolts of financial secrecy. Tom Burgis, Financial Times.